How did you make your first billion?
So my partner, Todd Wagner, and I would get together for lunches, and we were at California Pizza Kitchen in Preston Hollow in Dallas. And he was talking about how we could use this new thing called the internet. This is late 94, early 95, to be able to listen to Indiana University basketball games, because that's where we went to school. Mm-hmm. And he was like, look, when we would listen to games, we would have somebody in Bloomington, Indiana, have a speakerphone next to a radio, and then we would have a speakerphone in Dallas and, 6-pack or 12-pack of beer, and we sit around listening to the game because there was no other way to listen to it. So I was like, okay, my first company, Micro Solutions, I'd written software, done network integration, and so I was comfortable digging into it. And so I was like, okay, let's give it a try. So we started this company called AudioNet, and effectively became the first streaming content company on the internet. And we're like, okay, we're not sure how we're going to make this work, but we were able to make it work. And we started going to radio stations and TV stations and, music labels and everything, and evolved audionet.com, which was only audio at the beginning, to broadcast.com in 1998, which was audio and video, and became the largest multimedia site on the internet, took it public in July of 1998. It had the largest first-day jump in the history of the stock market at the time. And then a year later, we sold it to Yahoo for $5.7 billion in Yahoo stock. And I owned, right around 30% of the company, give or take. And so after taxes, that's what got me there.
Well, there's a lot of questions there. So the technical challenge of that, you're making it sound easy, but you wrote code, but still in the early days of the internet, how do you figure out how to create this kind of product of just audio at first and then video at first?
A lot of iterations, right? Like you talked about. We started in the second bedroom of my house, set up a server. I got an ISDN line, which was a 128K line, and downloaded Netscape server, and then started using different file formats that were progressive loading and allowing people to connect to the server and do a progressive download so that the audio, you can listen to the audio while it was downloading onto your PC.
Yeah, was it super choppy? So you were trying to figure out how to do it?
For sure. It would buffer. It wasn't good, but it was a start.
But it was good enough because it's the first kind of...
Yeah, because there was no other competition, right? There was nobody else doing it.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, I can get access to this, or this. And then there were some third-party software companies, Zing and Progressive Networks and others that took it a little bit further. So we partnered with them, and I started going to local radio stations where literally we would set up a server. Right next to it, I had a $49 radio, the highest FM radio that I could find. And we take the output of the audio signal from the radio with these two analog cables, plug it into the server, encode it, and make it available from audionet.com. Then I would go on UUNet bulletin boards. I would go on CompuServe. I would go on Prodigy. I would go on AOL. I'd go wherever I could find bodies. And I'd say, okay, we've got this radio station, KLIF in Dallas. It's got Dallas sports and Dallas news and politics. And if you're in an office or you're outside of Dallas, connect to audionet.com, and now you can listen to these things on demand. And that's how we started. And it started with one radio station, and then it was 5, then it was 10, then it was video content, then the laws were different then. So we could literally go out and buy CDs and host them and just let people listen to whatever music. And we went from, 10 users a day to 100 to 1,000 to hundreds of thousands to 1 million over those next 4 years.
How did you find the users? Is it word of mouth?
Word of mouth.
Just word of mouth.
Didn't spend a penny on advertising.
So the thing you were focusing on is getting the radio stations and all that.
Radio and TV, anything, any content at all.
Did you pick up the phone?
Wherever I could, like everything that was public domain, I'd go out and buy a video or a cassette, whatever it was, and this was before the DMs, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 97, whenever it kicked in. So literally anything that was audio, we would put online so people could listen to it.
Yeah.
And if you think about somebody at work, they didn't have a radio most likely, and if you did, you couldn't get reception. Definitely didn't have a TV, but you had a PC, and you had bandwidth available to you, and the companies weren't up on firewalls or anything at that point in time. So our in-office listening, during the day, what just exploded because whoever's sitting next to you, what are you listening to, right? And that was the start of it. And then, in early '98, we started adding video and just other things, and we had ended up with thousands of servers. There was no cloud back then, and just pulling together all those pieces to make it work. But where we really made our money was by taking that network that we had built and then going to corporations and saying, look, it's 1996, 97, 98, and to communicate with your worldwide employees, what they would do is they would go to an auditorium that had a satellite uplink, and then they would have people go to like theaters or ballrooms and hotels that had satellite downlinks, and then would broadcast, their product introductions, whatever. And so we said to them, look, you're paying millions of dollars to reach all your employees when you can do it. Pay us $500,000 and we'll do it just on their PCs at work. So we did, when Intel announced the P90 PC, we, charged them $2 million or whatever to do that. When Motorola announced a new phone or a new product, we would charge them. And so we used the consumer side to do a proof of concept for the network. And then we would take that knowledge and go to corporations, and that's how we made our revenue.
And there's some selling there with the corporations.
Yeah, a lot of selling there, but we were saving them so much money. Yeah. And they were technology companies. They wanted to be perceived as being leading edge.
Yep.
And so it was win-win.
How much technical savvy was required? You said a bunch of servers. Like, at which point do you get more engineers? How much did you understand could do yourself? And then also, once you can't do it all yourself, how much technical savvy is required to understand enough to hire the right people to keep building this and innovating?
I did all the technology, and then we hired engineer after engineer after engineer to implement it. And so,
wow,
yeah, from putting together a multicast network to software to just all these different things.
Was this like a scary thing? Like,
it's terrifying,
yeah,
right? Because as we were growing, trying to keep up with the scale, and literally we're buying off-the-shelf PCs, and then server cards as the technology advanced, and hard drives, and things would fail, and we would have to, we didn't have machine learning back then to do an analysis of how to distribute server resources. So like there was a time when Bill Clinton and all the Monica Lewinsky stuff happened. They released the audio of their interviews of him or something like that, right? And I knew at that point in time when that was released, everybody at work was going to want to listen to it, right?
Yep.
So we had to take down servers that were doing Chicago Cubs baseball, right? And just make all these on-the-fly decisions because we didn't have the tools to analyze or be predictive. But yeah, it was all technology driven and marketing.
The acquisition by Yahoo, can you tell the story of that? But also in the broader context of this internet bubble. This is a fascinating part of human history.
Yeah. So on the acquisition side, we were the largest media site on the internet, and it wasn't close. There was nobody close. We were YouTube, and relatively speaking, we would be 10x YouTube relative to the competition because there was nobody there. And so it became obvious to Yahoo, AOL, and others that they needed a multimedia component. And we had the infrastructure, sales, all that stuff. And so Yahoo, when we went public in '98, or right before I think it was, they made an investment of like $2 million, which gave us a connection to them. And then after we went public, they decided they needed to have multimedia. And so in April of '99, we made a deal, and then July of 2000 is when it closed.
And can you explain to me the trickiness of what you did after that?
Oh, the caller?
Yeah.
Okay, so when we sold to Yahoo, we sold for $5.7 billion in stock, not cash. And so I looked at, after Micro Solutions, when I sold that, I took that money, and initially I told my broker I wanted to invest like a 60-year-old man because I wanted to protect it. Yeah. But then he started asking me all kinds of questions about all these technologies that I understood, like networks I had installed. We had become one of the top 20, let's say, systems integrators in the country. At one point in time, we were the largest IBM token ring installer in the country. It was crazy, right? Banyan, name blast from the past. I mean, so anyway, so these Wall Street bankers or analysts rather, that were the big analysts of the time would call me up because they would ask my broker, what does he know about this product, And I knew them all, what was working and not working, right? And so the ones that worked, I say that's working. I see the stock. They say something. The stock would go up $20, right? So I'm like, well, and my broker's like, you know this better than they do. You need to invest. So I started buying and selling stocks, and this was in 1990, and was just killing it. I was making 80, 90, 100% a year over those next 4 years, to the point where a guy came in and asked to use my trading history to start a hedge fund, which we did, and I sold within 9 months. It was great, right? But the point being, as it goes forward, so when we sold to Yahoo, I already had a lot of experience trading stocks, and I had seen different bubbles come and go. A bubble for PC manufacturers, a bubble for networking manufacturers. They went up, 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 and then they came straight down after the hype, or somebody just leapfrogged. And so when we sold to Yahoo, I was like, I've got a B next to my name. Mm-hmm. That's all I need or all I want. I don't want to be greedy. And I'd seen this story before where stocks get really frothy and go straight down. And I knew that because of what I had was in stock, I needed to find a way to collar it and protect it. So understanding stocks and trading and options and all that, my broker and I, we went and shorted an index that had Yahoo in it. And so the law at the time was you couldn't short any indexes that had more than 5% of that stock in it, right? Mm-hmm. That of any one of the Yahoo stock. And so I took pretty much $20-some million, everything I had at the time, and I shorted the index.
This is fascinating, by the way, because it's based on your estimation that this is a bubble,
or just mine not wanting to be greedy.
Sure. So the foundation of this kind of thinking is you don't want to be greedy.
Yeah. I mean, how much money do I need, right? Yeah. Where other people were saying, oh, I think it can go up higher, higher, higher. I was like, I went on CNBC and I told them what I had done, and they were like, and Yahoo stock had gone up significantly from the time I had collared. And one of the guys, Joe Kernan, was on there. Don't you feel stupid now that Yahoo stock has gone up, X% more? I'm like, yeah, I feel real stupid sitting on my jet.
Yeah. But so there is some fundamental way in which bubbles are based on this greed.
Oh,
this
for sure. Greed. Yeah. And I'd seen it before, right? Like I just said. And so what I did was we put together a collar where I sold calls and bought puts. And as it turned out, when the market just cratered, I was protected. And, over the next 2-3 years, whatever it was, it converted to cash, paid my taxes, et cetera. But it protected me. And as it turns out, it was called one of the top 10 trades of all time. And what was even more interesting out of that period, my broker at that time was at Goldman Sachs, and I had asked him to see if there was a way to trade the VIX, right? The volatility index. And there wasn't, right? And so one of the people at Goldman that we were working with to try to create this actually left Goldman and created indexes that allowed you to trade the VIX.
Well, it's not trivial to understand that it's a bubble. I mean, you're kind of lessening your insight into all of this by saying you just didn't want to be greedy. But you still have to see that it's a bubble.
Yeah, I mean, obviously if I thought it was going to keep on going up and there was intrinsic value there, I would have stayed in it. But it wasn't so much Yahoo, it was just the entire industry. You would, back then, like we're looking at the Magic 7 or whatever it is stocks now, and people were asking, is it a bubble? And when I would get into cabs and people would just start talking about internet stocks, there were people creating companies with just a website and going public. That's a bubble. Right? Where there's no intrinsic value at all. And people aren't even trying to make operating cap profits. They're just trying to leverage the frothiness of the stock market. That's a bubble. You don't see that right now. There's not companies, you don't see any IPOs right now for that matter. So, I don't think we're in a bubble now, but back then, yes, I thought we were in a bubble, but that wasn't really the motivating factor.
Do you think it's possible we're in a bit of an AI bubble right now?
No, because we're not seeing funky AI companies just go public. If all of a sudden we see a rush of companies who are skins on other people's models or just creating models to create models that are going public, then that's probably the start of a bubble. But that said, my 14-year-old was bragging about buying NVIDIA, with me in his Robinhood account. He tells me the order, I place it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's going up, up, up," And I'm like, "Yeah, we're not quite there yet, but that's one thing to pay attention to."
Yeah, we're flirting with it.
Yeah.
You said that becoming a billionaire requires luck.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, there's no business plan where you can just start it and say, "Yeah, I'm definitely going to be a billionaire." You can, if I had to start all over, could I start a company that made me a millionaire? Yeah, because I know how to sell and I know technology, and I've learned enough over the years to do that. Could I make 10 million? Probably. 100 million? I hope so. But a billion, just something good has got to happen.
Timing.
Internet stock market was going nuts right when we started, and that certainly I couldn't predict or control. It's like AI right now. AI's been around a long, 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 long time. And the NVIDIA processors, or GPUs rather, you couldn't predict that now's the time that they were going to get to that cost effectiveness where, you could create models and train them. And although it's expensive, it's still doable. We had ASICs, right, for custom applications, and we had CPUs that were leading the way, but GPUs were more for gaming and then crypto mining. And now, all of a sudden, they were the foundation for AI models.
So I think luck being essential to becoming a billionaire is a beautiful way to see life in general. First of all, I personally think that everything good that's ever happened to me is because of luck. I think that's just a good way of being. It's like you're grateful. That said, there's some examples of people that you're like, they seem to have they seem to have gotten lucky a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned Jeff Bezos.
Uh-huh.
It seems like he did a lot of really interesting, powerful decisions for many years with Amazon to make it successful.
But he was really able to raise money, right? A lot of money, and people were really dismissive of him because they weren't they weren't profitable, and we were in an environment where it was possible to raise
that money. I mean, what about somebody you get sometimes feisty with on the internet, Elon, but we couldn't even look at Zuck and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett.
Sure. Look, Zuck was just trying to get laid, right? And it took off, and you wrote some good software.
Aren't we all? Isn't
right,
that
at some level,
the foundation of human civilization?
Right? But so more power to him, right? You can't take anything away from him. But yeah, Snapchat, same thing, took off. Apps didn't take off in 2007 when the iPhone came out. Apps took off in 2011, 2012. And if you were there with the right app at the right time, and even Facebook, in 2004, the bubble had burst, and, the price for computers had fallen enough, and kids in school all needed computers or laptops. If he had tried to do something like that, 5 years earlier, I mean, it was too young, but, 5 years earlier or 5 years later, or Friendster might have been the ultimate, or MySpace.
Friendster, I remember Friendster.
Or MySpace. I had a MySpace account, and that was before Facebook.
Yeah. The timing is important, but there's like the details of how the product is built, the fundamentals of the product, like what.
But that's what gets you when the opportunity is there, right? That's what allows you to take advantage of that opportunity and the kismet of it all, right? You've got to be, because it wasn't like any of the people I mentioned, there weren't others trying the same thing.
Yeah.
Right? You had to be able to see it. You had to be able to visualize it and put together a plan of some sort, or at least have a path. And then you had to execute on it and do all those things at the same time and have the money available to you, because it wasn't like whether it was Google or Facebook, they raised a shitload of money. It wasn't bootstrapping it that got them there.
And raising money is not just about sales. It's about the general feeling of the people with money at that time.
And proximity. If
sure.
Zuck wasn't at Harvard and he was at Miami of Ohio University, or he was at Richland Community College, same idea, same person, same execution, and nothing.
I believe in the power of individuals to realize their potential no matter where they come from. But
I agree 100% with that, right?
But luck is required.
Yeah. I mean, scale is the only delta is scale.
Yeah.
Right? Where, we're not all blessed with the access to the tools that you need to hit that grand slam.
But then also, billion is not the only measure of success, right?
Absolutely not, right? Everybody defines this success in their own way.